Hello everyone. Good afternoon. Um, my name is Amit Husu, and I'm Senior Director at Global Carbon Council. So today we have this webinar already scheduled. Webinar on unlocking GCC 2.0 for Project Portal. On this webinar, I would like to first of all inform you about the GCC 2.0 is a second generation, I would say, GCC program. Um, so in October, we had done the first webinar on explaining the contents of the GCC 2.0. At that point in time, although we had documents being prepared and being, also hosted on website, which are still available as of now. So we had in that meeting, we explained to you that we are going to also give you introduction about the IT platforms that will support GCC 2.0. So today the focus is on the GCC projects portal, on explaining how the IT platform will work and how the project developers, the verifiers, the GCC operations team, including the steering committee, and how all of them can actually use this platform. So let me now, first of all, provide a little bit of information about how on the agenda for this webinar. So I would first, we have our Chief Operations Officer, Kishore Rajhansa here with us. So I'd welcome him for opening remarks first, followed with, I would say, recap on GCC 2.0. It's more or less the same presentation which I did last time. There are certain elements which are new, particularly with regards to Corsia, and newer elements in context to that. And then following that, I would invite my colleague Shubindu Biswas, who is Director at Global Carbon Council, to walk us through the demo for the projects portal. And in the end, we will have question and answer. So I think we have scheduled close to 2 hours for this session. I think we should have enough time to have interactions, discussions, so on and so forth. But before I move ahead, we have close to 177 participants as of now. Although the registrations that were done indicated about close to 300 plus participants will be joining us. I hope they are joining us in some time. So the participants are from more than 55 countries. Let me first, set up some ground rules for this. First of all, the presentations and the videos will be shared and will be available on GCC website with all of you. And also, I would request you to please keep your microphones muted unless you are asking questions towards the end of this program. Okay, all of you can hear very clearly. I can see some of the chats, but if you are not, some of you are not able to hear us clearly, please can you let us know? Can you send a quick message, and my team here would be able to address to it. Okay, so let me continue. I would also request you that in case you can type your questions in the chat box. We'll be monitoring those questions. And also, in case you have questions towards the end, you can use electronic hands, and then I will moderate the discussions accordingly. So before I begin, I would first of all request our Chief Operations Officer, Kishore Rajhansa, to have some opening remarks. Following this, I would request all of you to open your cameras for a quick picture. But first, I would request Kishore Rajhansa first. Kishore. Please.
Thank you, Amit. And yeah, my name is Kishore Rajans. I am the CEO at Global Carbon Council, and I welcome you all for this very important meeting that we wanted to have with you to discuss our ambitious, futuristic project portal and regulatory framework on GCC 2.0. The team has been working on this for quite some time. For revamping the rules and the project portal to be aligned it with the futuristic requirement of the voluntary as well as compliance carbon market. So just to begin with, I just want to make a recap on on GCC, the program as such. We were launched in 2016. We became operational from 2019 after having all the infrastructure deployed. In 2021, we were registered for pilot phase of CORSIA, or approved by pilot phase by ICAO for pilot phase of CORSIA. In 2024 November, we are approved under first phase of CORSIA. We are also an approved program under ICROA, International Carbon Reduction and Offsetting Alliance, and we have applied for ICBCM in the month of October, and we expect to hear from them somewhere in the first quarter of next year. So far we have about 1,525 projects, 1,525 projects received from 45 plus countries, and about 110, 112 issuance projects are registered, and more than 10 million credits are issued. Yeah. So, but then we are jumping up on number of issuances. There are many more issuances that are happening of late, and we expect that these numbers will go up very soon, rapidly. In COP29, I would say COP29 was a really fantastic COP in terms of carbon market, because then Article 6 rules have been fully completed. They are now ready for operationalization, which includes Article 6.4 as well as Article 6.2, rules on interoperable registry, rules on revoking of the letter by the host country, and rules on double accounting, etc. have been defined, and there's nothing which is awaited for full operationalization of Article 6.2. At the same time, CORSIA has approved programs, which is CORSIA, you can say it's a part of OIMP, other international mitigation purposes, which is kind of an Article 6.2 mechanism itself, in which is outside UNFCCC umbrella, of course, because it is aviation, international aviation sector emissions. So CORSIA first phase, which we have received in November, has opened the floodgates for carbon markets and high quality carbon finance, which will come up as a result of that. So GCC and other programs on renewables have been approved. However, there is a restriction of 15 megawatt has been put in place by CORSIA TAB and ICAO Council. This 15 megawatt restriction has been across all the programs, but it does not mean that the bigger projects than the 15 megawatt cannot use the compliance market. They have a way open for Article 6.2 market as well. And now the countries are coming up with the openness on the letters of authorization. So when they will give the letter of authorization, they will not only give the letter of authorization for CORSIA, but also for Article 6.2 credits, which can be traded unilaterally. This was also clarified in COP29, that unilateral transaction is possible as well as bilateral transaction is possible. So I expect that voluntary market with correspondingly adjusted credit has a lot of potential in coming forward. So we have been approved in all scopes, sectoral scopes, except HFC and nuclear, that we ourselves has said that we wanted to exclude that. On nature-based solutions and carbon capture and storage, we have already developed the methodologies. The frameworks have been rolled out, and they are also the part of 2.0 of GCC as well, which is to be rolled out on 1st of February. However, we will apply the material change request to CORSIA in first quarter of 2025 to include this in our approval scope of CORSIA phase 1. What is the unique feature of GCC in the CORSIA is that we applied the buffer approach, which means that it brings a lot of certainty. We apply the buffer of 15% on the CORSIA credits, and as a result of that, 85% carbon credit will be issued and they can be sold in the market. However, in case of a double accounting happens, or for example, a letter of authorization has been revoked by the host country, or the host country does not meet its promise of applying corresponding adjustment, in that case, the recovery process will start. And there are 10 steps of recovery process which have been mentioned. One of the step is including using buffer account for meeting the double accounted, the environmental issue, to address the environmental issues caused by double accounted credits. As I said, we also applied for ICVCM, and we would wait for the decision of ICVCM in the first quarter. And 6.2 will take care of compliance market on one side, ICVCM on the other side. So we are heading towards a very high integrity markets in the future. And GCC 2.0 that you will see now, just now from Amit and Subhendu, would have been designed in a way to tackle all the futuristic scenarios that would come out of compliance and voluntary market. So with this, without waiting more, making you wait for more time, I would hand over to Amit for the next session presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore, for your opening remarks. Now, I think I will turn to one short presentation from my side. It will cover GCC 2.0 and would be a recap of what was done in the earlier webinar. I can see there are a few questions from the participants as of now, but I will request them to keep that on hold for some moment. Let me quickly have a presentation, and then we have enough time to discuss all your queries. And I can see the questions are really very relevant. So let me allow me to share my presentation now. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So just wanted to ask you if you can see my screen, and if you can hear me clearly. Okay, I assume that everyone is able to see my screen. So, okay, so let me give an introduction about this GCC 2.0. So the new framework, second generation, you can say GCC program, it will provide a single window opportunity for carbon market players to contribute to climate change mitigation and sustainability while ensuring integrity, independence, objectivity, and transparency. So this program has been designed based on a lot of, I would say, experience that's there in the market on CDM, but also on Article 6.2, 6.4 regulations that were approved quite recently by the supervisory body. And then also includes ICVCM requirements, includes ICROVA principles, includes also the CORSIA phase 1 and phase 2 principles, but also provides flexibility in terms of also allowing, in addition to approved carbon credits, the flexibility of having approved renewable energy certificates. So it is either or option. So the point is that it is because there's a lot of standards in the market, there's a lot of information with regard to from different regulators or practitioners. The objective was to create a single window for project developers to develop projects, choosing the way they want to develop the projects, choosing what requirements they want, whether they want to cater to jurisdiction of CORSIA phase 1 pilot phase or Article 6.2 or to ICVCM and so on and so forth. So I think that was the basic principle of why we came up with this whole program. Now, as I explained, the challenges that are also in the screen, we also have other challenges, too many standards and too many requirements, and therefore there was a need for having this single window. We also have challenges with regard to host country letter of authorization. COP, Kishore explained about the COP had actually, reduced provided a lot of clarity and reduced a lot of ambiguity, but still the countries are still far away from issuing the host country letter of authorization. I think the coming next couple of months probably will be an observation time to see how the things unfold. With regard to the application of corresponding adjustments, I would say at this point in time, there are multiple approaches that there are there in the market. First of all, on Article 6.4 approach, which is completely different, which is kind of, which in my understanding, delinks everything, the application of corresponding adjustment from project development and project assessment. Um, and then you look at CORSIA approach. CORSIA also has two approaches basically. One is the insurance approach, which is followed by some of the programs like Vera or Gold Standard or anyone else, and the buffer approach, which is followed by the GCC and has been approved for to apply the buffer approach. Now, the difference between insurance and buffer approach, I would not really go in the details of this, but I think buffer approach provides more certainty. It gives there's a upfront buffer credit deduction, which will help to cover the risks in case the corresponding adjustment is not applied at later point in time. And helps in that it gives businesses more certainty, I would say. The insurance approach, I think, is something I would like to hear from you, your views about to what extent you all are comfortable with the insurance approach. So with this, let me quickly move on a very high level. I'll be rather very quick. As I said, this is just a recap presentation. So we have looked upon all the requirements from CORSIA, ICVCM, and so on and so forth, and we compiled them into higher level 16 principles that you can see for program level integrity. I'd not go in the details of this, but I think they are the fundamental principles that has been applied since beginning. But we have additionally included performance evaluation of third-party verifiers. We have additionally included human rights, women rights, labor rights, child labor, and those requirements. Prevent conflict of interest due to that we have built in upon the anti-money laundering processes, anti-bribery processes, anti-corruption guidance, and also included global stakeholder consultations at two levels. One at the I would say registration, just before the registration, just before the validation, and second at the point of issuance. We also included additional free prior informed consent processes, bandwidth sharing, grievance and appeals process through which stakeholders, project developers can appeal against the decisions of the steering committee in case their projects are rejected or in case their issuance is rejected and they feel that they have not been really looked they have not been really considered in the documentation that's been submitted. There's an additional requirement on introducing a new label on adaptation label. We call that as AD plus label that is coming from the ICVCM. Is an optional process from the ICVCM point of view. And also, apart from this, we have process on addressing erroneous issuances as well, in case there have been errors in the previous verification, how that could be handled. Going further, with regard to credit level criteria, there are a few requirements, particularly that we have included now is the prior consideration of carbon revenues. They will be very essential to deal with, but also for ICVCM, they have a requirement of consideration of carbon revenues, whether or not those carbon revenues are actually elevating the financial barrier, which means that with the cash flows from the carbon finance, from the carbon credits, the project should be financially feasible. So that is a requirement coming from ICVCM, but it's not a requirement from CORSIA or from GCC or from any other. So there are further other requirements, particularly with regard to revocation of host country letter of authorization, verification of corresponding adjustment. I'm going to talk more about this in some time. There is also a requirement to have more conservative baseline scenarios, particularly coming from the ICVCM. Okay, so in terms of the new project types and IT platforms that Kishore talked about, we have new type of projects called as Type D projects, CCS projects, and AFLU projects or nature-based solution projects called as Type C projects. So there are new two types that are included. We have new projects portal on which the demo will be given today. We also have a new registry. You would have heard about GCC's press release on new contract or a new agreement and MOU signed with S&P Global will provide the registry services, which would be more integrated and advanced registry services. In terms of the new labels, the GCC 2.0 will introduce new labels, as I talked about. The ERIC, there will be two unit types, on ACCs and ERICs. There will be new certification labels on TR Plus label for the CCS projects and R Plus for the AFLOW or nature-based solution projects. There would be new labels. I would say we have split the existing E Plus label into EL and EBL. So EL is no harm with regard to in compliance to if the requirement is to comply with the legal requirements, and if a project developer goes beyond the legal, then EBL label can be awarded. So we have created that differentiation and also the similar differentiation for the no harm to society requirements. We have new market eligibility labels. Now we have segregated CORSIA label into C plus pilot phase and C plus first phase label. You would obviously be seeing that in our public registry. And for Article 6.2, introduction of CA plus label, we also have CCP label because we have included new standard on ICVCM, also publicly available at this point in time under GCC 2.0. So the new processes include limiting the number of opportunities for project owners, verifiers, responses to 3. After which the request for review would be triggered, and that will be the final opportunity for project owners and verifiers to respond to those questions from the steering committee. And after that, the final decision would be out. And then I will skip some of them because I covered them. Bundling has been integrated into this. Deviation from the methodology, post-registration change processes have been included. Renewal of crediting period is allowed also under this. And also we have revised approach for SDGs. So it's more like a kind of a digital approach. We've taken Excel sheet formats for providing, because handling those environmental no harm requirements through PDD used to be very cumbersome. Then moving on. So there are new requirements on safeguard policies, prevention of conflict of interest, our ACC, our issuance safeguards, procedure for compensation of ACCs for prevention of double counting, also exist. Professional liability insurance for verifiers was already existed before. So we have new consultation policies. I covered them already. Grievance and appeal process is something which I talked about. Public information transparency policies are also reflected in this whole documentation. So in terms of Article 6.2 and CORSIA Phase 1 requirements, letter of intent, which we informed earlier, has been made now voluntary because of inputs coming from CORSIA tab. So the letter of intent from a country is not a requirement. It is a voluntary choice for project owners in case they want to provide it at registration. The host country letter of authorization is a requirement to be provided at the earliest, but at the latest by the first verification. So the project owners have a choice then and the flexibility to submit projects without worrying about the letter of authorization at registration stage. In terms of application of corresponding adjustment, I have a slide on this. I will cover it at that point in time. And then I would like to say about the ICVCM requirements. FPIC requirements called as first prior informed consent process have been included. Benefit sharing with the indigenous communities and affected communities is also included. So there's an uncertainty tool that will be made available at some point in time. The ICVCM requirements is to ask programs and project developers to address uncertainty in the selection of baseline scenario, but also uncertainty in the monitoring of parameters. Noting that CCP, the ICVCM program is designed in such a way that the methodologies are approved from time to time, and therefore there is a process of tagging CCP labels that are already issued. The process is something like the reissuance and of cancelled ACCs held by project owners, consequent to approval of new version of the methodologies and tools by ICVCM. So this will require a post-registration change process under the prior approval track. Okay. For now, let me give a little bit of flavor about CORSIA phase 1. I think Kishore talked about it. So renewable energy projects have been limited to 15 megawatt, not only for GCC, but for all the programs in general. So what does it mean then? It means then that the projects that have capacity more than 15 megawatt cannot issue credits that are CORSIA phase 1 compliant, or that have label for the CORSIA phase 1. However, it means then they can either be used for voluntary purposes, or issued for voluntary purposes, or issued for Article 6.2 purposes, or can be used or issued as an ARIC. So there are these possibilities under the GCC program. Corresponding adjustment by host country. There are two approaches from CORSIA, as I talked about earlier. The first approach is, I call that as a buffer approach, for the CORSIA first phase, wherein a certain amount of buffer, 15%, would be deducted upfront at the point of issuance, and remaining would be issued to the programs. However, for Article 6.2 label, there are two options. One option is that the ACCs would be issued, but the transfer would be blocked. So which means then it gives opportunity to project owners to, keep on issuing credits, keep them, make them available in the market on the GCC registry, and give a signal to the buyers that these credits are available. And once corresponding adjustment is, verified by third-party verifiers, they will be unblocked and be available in the market. This is an option for project owners, and the second option is the same buffer approach which I talked about earlier. So there are advantages and disadvantages in option 1 and option 2. If you don't want a 15% buffer deduction, you can keep option 1, but the credits will not be available in the market. The option 2 gives there's a certain percentage which gets deducted as a buffer, so as to take care of the risks of non-application of corresponding adjustment, or the risks of revocation of letter of authorization. So I think both have advantages and disadvantages, but in general there is a flexibility for project owners. Okay, so the only thing I just want to talk about is, I know I have spent close to, I would say, 15 minutes. So I will take a few minutes, I would say more. So for the registration process, at the point of registration, the project owners would have to look at a number of things. First of all, look at the project design. See that whether or not it's a single project or a bundle project. If it's a homogeneous or heterogeneous project, which methodology would be applicable? If it is CDM methodology, or if it is Article 6.4 methodology, if it is whenever it's available. As of now, we know, I've heard that UNFC in first quarter or middle of next quarter is going to, come up with at least few methodologies, at least HCM2 based methodology and some landfill-based methodology. This is what I've heard. So they can be applied. Both are applicable, GCC, CDM, or Article 6.4. Of course, the buyers will have their own preferences of which methodology they would prefer. So we leave it up to the project owners to make their choice. There will be also a requirement stating the expected emission reductions, or ARICs. It's not both. So ARICs can be issued, or ACCs can be issued for the same monitoring period. So it cannot be both. So you have to look at which labels you are targeting, and to what extent, whether it is CCP label or it is CORSIA Plus for first phase, pilot phase, or so on and so forth. So there will be a clear inputs to be considered. There has to be clear inputs to be considered by the project owners before moving ahead. That will set up the scene for project design, and then the rest of the process is similar. It's not undergone any change. The only additional thing is that at the point of in the PSF, they will have to indicate when the host country letter would be made available, and what would be the approach of verification or application of corresponding adjustment by the host country? I'm saying host country. It's only the host country. We do not require buyer country to have apply corresponding adjustment. Of course, it's a requirement, but we will not be looking at that. Okay, so in terms of application of corresponding adjustments, there's a requirement in our rules that a signed self-declaration from the authorized focal point of project owners have been provided in the PSF as an annex, which should at least provide information on the written host country letter when it will be provided and whether it will be at least provide at the point of request for issuance, and provide information on the approaches for application of corresponding adjustment for Article 6.2, as I explained earlier, and for CORSIA first phase, if they want to opt for it, and provide a written undertaking that assures full compensation of double claimed ACCs for either option in case the corresponding adjustments are not being applied. So I'll just talk about this. There are slightly different approach for 6.2 and CORSIA. Earlier, we had kept the same option as for Article 6.2 and CORSIA. However, TAB requested us to take out option 1 completely from the CORSIA requirements. So which means then for CORSIA, there's only the buffer approach that's available. So there will be buffer directions. And upon submission of corresponding adjustment verification report by verifier, is an additional service by the verifier, the status will be updated on the GCC projects portal and the registry on whether or not the corresponding adjustment have been verified within 3 years of the issuance date. So what will happen in case this evidence is not provided? The recovery process as per the double counted ACCs as per the procedure of double counting would come into force, and the project owners will be liable to provide and supply the equivalent amount of ACCs which have been double counted or for which the ACCs have not been provided. Of course, some part of it will come from the I would say the pool of buffer, the buffer pool limited to the contributions that have been provided by the project owners. Of course, there are other requirements also. I will not go in the details of that procedure. It's a very long procedure. For 6.2, there are two approaches, as I have said earlier. But in case option 1 is chosen for Article 6.2 and corresponding adjustment is not being provided within 3 years of issuance date, then GCC program will remove the label of corresponding CA+, particularly for Article 6.2 from this. Yeah, I think this is what I wanted to talk about. For issuance, there is a new is a recovery process that I talked about. So I will not really be very detailed on this, except that host country letter is necessary at the point of submission of request for issuance. Okay, so now talking about benefits of transitioning from 1.0 to 2.0. Let me take a minute on this. So the benefit would be basically to explore new project tracks, nature-based solution, carbon capture storage. In GCC 1.0, you can't access it. So in case you want to submit such projects, you have to apply GCC 2.0. Then you have limited market eligibility labels, only CORSIA for pilot phase in 1.0. So if you want access to or want to have all the 3 labels on Article 6.2, CCP for ICVCM and CORSIA first phase and pilot phase, then you should move to GCC 2.0. Apart from this, there are other certification labels like EL, EBL. As I said, there's a bifurcation of labels. There is another label on nature-based solutions, NR, NR+, and technological removal, TR+, for CCS projects that can be made available on 2.0. The post-register change process is not available in 1.0. In case your projects that are already registered, undergoing issuance, are suffering from the post-register change, then I think it will be important for you to shift to GCC 2.0. Then about the crediting period, the only under 1.0, you have a fixed crediting period of 10 years. Whereas in 2.0, there is a possibility to have a fixed crediting period and renewal crediting period. There are different, crediting periods. Of course, nature-based solutions will have crediting periods from 15 to 20 years and renewable 4 times. CCS 30 years, fixed crediting period. For other projects, regular projects, there will be 10 years fixed crediting period and 5 years crediting period with 2 renewals in line with Article 6.2 and 6.4. Okay, so in terms of improving the efficiency for a registration and issuance process, there is a binding timeline. As I said, 3 times, opportunity would be provided. With regard to GSC, there is a, this process under GCC 2.0 is strengthened, but also for renewal of global stakeholder process, it has been, more flexibility has been provided in GCC 2.0 by extending it by 6 months instead of 1 year under the GCC 1.0. Okay, so yeah, very long list, but very valuable, I would say. E plus S plus labels and bifurcation is available in 2.0. New digitized portal will be available for 2.0. Flexibility in emission reduction claims. ERIC is available in addition to ACCs. And then there's also one more thing which is important is that under the GCC 1.0, the focal point is considered to be only one entity, which means that credits can directly go in the focal point 2 in the registry once an account is opened. Whereas under GCC 2.0, there is a possibility to have to share, to have the sharing of credits built into the letter of authorization and other subsequent documentation like monitoring reports and so on and so forth. You can share those credits among the 3 entities. So this will save you transfer charges, and would actually benefit the project developers because they would at least reduce transfer charges for 2 accounts. So if there's a 33%, sharing between the 3 project owners or between the 3 focal points, 2, the transfer charges for 2 of them can be shared. So 67% of the transfer charges will actually be saved. So right now the transfer charges are close to 4 cents. You can yourself do calculations and find out. Okay, GCC 2.0 will be enforced from 1st of Feb 2025. Of course, there may be slight delay here and there depending on to what extent we are able to develop the GCC projects portal. So I will not talk about more on this. I would now, request Shibindu to provide an update on the GCC projects portal, which you can see on the screen is in red, boundary. So it covers registration workflow and pre-issuance and issuance workflow. So with this, I would like to, request Shibindu. Shibindu, you have the floor. If you can start with the demo.
Okay.
There are few questions actually also here.
Yeah, no, there's. I think let's take it at the end because then it would be difficult to run through the portal.
Yes.
In time.
Okay.
So in fact, I think that we will do only one part, which is the registration, because we already have 40 minutes gone. Let's see what we can do. So I'll start with maybe. Okay, can you see my screen? Just let me know.
I can see your screen.
Okay, right. So I'll start right away. Some rules, as Amit said, and I'll just reiterate on them. So basically, the fact is that we are going to run through the first 2 modules. If you see this whole program, this module is divided into several modules. There's a registration module, there's a issuance module, there's a PRC module, there's a renewal of waiting period module, there's a methodology module, and there is a part which is purely with respect to managing the VBVs and the experts. All these plug into a central portal, therein. So today we are trying to look at maybe at the registration, and if time permits, maybe we're going to switch also to the issuance module to give you a look and feel as to what is going to come to you when you actually start working on these portals and all. The other modules are going to come over the period of time as they get plugged into the main one. So what is it that we're looking at? So some ground rules, as I said, is that please park your question answers till the end of the session if you have any, so that we can answer them all at one go. There is my tech team led by Tushar is sitting there among you all. So I might reach out to Tushar to to move the project forward or backward depending upon the scenario that we encounter. Tushar, you're there, right? And so at the end of the session, we will ask your feedback on how we could improve further on this portal. That's the whole objective of this demonstration. This is in the testing phase, so we're going to put into production as soon as we take care of all the comments that you give to us as a part of your evaluation of the portal. So just a brief walkthrough as to how the whole thing would look like. It's a little difficult to understand at this point in time, but as you go through the whole portal, I think it would get a little more streamlined. You'll understand the final consequence of outcome of the whole thing. So it starts with an accounting process and all. I'll walk you through the portal to make you understand better. So these are the two workflows that we're seeing, at this point in time, the registration workflow and the issuance workflow. So I'll stop sharing here and I'll directly switch now to the portal in itself. So okay, so y'all can see my portal. I hope so. Just let me know. Can you see my portal?
I can see. I can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Right. Okay. So this is the testing.
Now you have unshared it.
Oh, okay. I shared it.
You shared it and unshared. I don't know. Somehow it got unshared.
Yeah, it went out maybe. Yeah.
So yes, now I can see.
You see it now, right? So this is in the testing domain at this point in time. So we're going to put into production once we have taken care of all the concerns that you might have on that. We try to give you a little on the help functions on what are the different entities who can come onboard this portal and what are their roles and all. So basically there are two tabs that you toggle between. One is the registration one and one is the issuance one. You can use these two buttons to toggle between registration and issuance, and you would also have a button at the end of the top line where you can switch between issuance and registration. So that's how it is primarily constructed. These are public views which you see on the top with respect to prior consideration submitted, projects which are submitted to us has got the submission number, projects that have gone into global stakeholder consultation, some which have been requesting review, because at the end of the 3 iterations that we have decided as a part of 2.0, projects might go into the review phase, so they can they are put up here in projects which we approve and projects which we say we don't say the projects which are rejected, we said not to register, because registrations is based on the information that you are providing at that point in time. You might come up with a new information. You might want to bring the project back onto GCC with a new set of information. So we say not to register then. So this is your starting point on the portal. So obviously, when you are a new user, you're going to sign up onto the portal. So you're presented with the form. Now, when you want to register, there would be several roles that you could assume. You can assume a role of focal point 1 or a focal point 2 or a project supporter or a trader or a public user. Now, these are certain terms that might be confusing to you. So of which role would you like to pick through? So if you need any help, there's a help function. So for example, you want to create an account on the portal. If you say yes, then the next question it poses is, would you be interested in submitting a project? If you say yes, then it would say, are you authorized to take up the responsibility of documentation and registration? If you say yes, then you are said, please register as a focal point 1. Or maybe if you are doing the other stuff, that is, you want to create a project, submit a project, but you are only the owner of the credits, you don't have the authorization to take care of the documentation and everything, then you will be told to register as a focal point 2. So different people would have different roles. So then you can fill in what role you want to carry forward, what is the name of the organization, your name, detail, phone number, character, confirm the passwords, and finally provide a proof of your identity. Because for us, project focal point 1 and focal point 2 can only be organizations. So it cannot be individuals who can offer us, give us projects. It's an organization gives us. So this proof of identification is given as a proof of the organization which is trying to register. So once you do this stuff, it's going to go back to the admin guy. The admin takes six of the documentation that has been offered, and the guy who's trying to register is the guy who's authorized therein. Then he's going to activate your account. So for example, we have some, logins that we have created. I'll just try to show you how, as to say, for example, you are a project owner and you confirm and you're not a robot and you are admitted into the portal under the registration workflow. So then that takes you some dashboard here. So the first point is
SD sir, I beg your pardon. Sir, is it possible if you can just increase the size of the window, maybe just maximize a little, because many of them are unable to read what is
okay. Now is it
written over
okay?
there.
A little better, because it would go
A little better, sir.
distorted. Okay, right. Thank you.
This is perfect, sir. Thank you.
Okay, right. So the starting point on, as a part of 2.0 process is submitting a prior consideration form. So if you are the entity who wants to submit a project at a later point in time, the first thing first is you got to submit a prior consideration form. So you click on add a consideration form on the right hand side. It opens up a soft version of the prior consideration form. So for example, you make a title, you say this is a demo project for portal testing. And then you say nothing, something, and then we have three track types, right, to choose from. So it can be a regular project, it can be a project on the nature-based solution, it can be a project on the technological removals and reductions. So we are now dealing with the regular track here. Then it's going to ask what kind of a project. So for example, you have a solar project, so you can say it's a solar project. You can choose the country, maybe I'll say India for easiness. So India, you'll be mapped against all the states. You can pick one. You can put in the city code. You can put in the postal code therein. Then you'll be asked to put in an organizational email herein. Now, this email is basically the fact that it might happen that you're the person who's submitting this prior consideration form, that is, which is very early on in a project, and a project comes much later subsequently. But then by that time, or you may decide that the project will be submitted by a consultant who's well versed in carbon matters and all. So that whenever you submit this consideration form, the system automatically assigns a number to it. So you have a unique prior consideration number which is generated against the submission that you have done. So this is the one CN00018, which is given therein. So you have two scenarios. One, that you might be the person who has created the consideration form and you would like to then go forward to submit the project subsequently when you have the details, or it might happen that you are not the guy, but then you have been authorized to submit a project on behalf of the legal owner. So when you go and you want to add a project, you have got to link it with a consideration form which was submitted earlier, right? So the moment you ask this, then what will happen is it will present to you the consideration form, and it will say that whether this is the form that you had submitted at the time of prior consideration. You got to verify and say, yes, this is the one that I want to link it with. Then he's going to ask for the code that was sent to the email ID, which we had put previously. Only when you validate the code herein and verify it, would you be allowed to move forward with the submission of the project. So this is just to the, because all these prior consideration forms are listed publicly. So we don't want anyone to pick up a consideration form and start making a project from that point. So it's only a validating function. So say, for example, we start creating a project based on the consideration form that we have, that this entity has submitted. So the first step in submitting a project is a letter of authorization, because that gives you the legal right to be able to move forward with the submission of the project. So the moment you click on it, you have a soft version of the letter of authorization opened up in front of you. So when you go down, so the first part of it is with respect to the legal owner. You might have multiple legal owners. You can keep adding as many as you want or removing as you want. So for example, for the sake of today's discussion, we say legal owner 1. So some passport number, some, say for example, it was issued in India. The legal owner 1 selected in India has a registration number something with a dummy address. and he authorizes the project. The project name is automatically picked from your prior consideration form. So you have already named it therein. It has a linked with the prior consideration form. It's automatically picked. Then you add the dummy address of the project. And then you move on to decide who are your project owners. So you might have multiple project owners. So for example, for today's discussion, we say project owner 1 is the one who has been authorized with the primary PO1 is the guy who's the primary focal point with some national ID and with an email ID of primary PO1. And you say there's a secondary guy also there in secondary PO1 with some national ID, and we have a secondary PO1 who there is therein. We may have a second guy which is the project owner 2. Now we added this because we should help you understand later on, as Amit was saying, that we could split credits, So primary PO2 is the guy with some national ID with a email ID. And there's a secondary contact person, secondary PO2 with some identity and a secondary PO2 email ID. So you added 2 project owners in this project. Then you can go down and select if they have been given any power of attorney. That's a part of the LOA form. And then you come to a choice where you decide what kind of a right would you like to give to your project owners. So it could be an exclusive right, wherein they get the rights to the credits as well, or it could be a non-exclusive one. So for example, we select a non-exclusive one. So then you could declare an external agency. So you can have an external agency to act on your behalf to do the documentation and present therein. And you could also authorize their primary contact points. You may have an external primary contact point 1 with some national ID therein. But then you'd see that this is a non-editable field because by logic, you are supposed to be the guy who's given the rights to present the documentation. So it picks directly the email ID from the login that you've created. The secondary one is the one that you could select from, punch in some national ID, also give an email ID for that, move on to the rights to the credits. Now here, as Amit said, you could split the credits. So you could decide no, 100% of the credits go to project owner 1. You might say, no, I split between the 2 project owners, some proportion, which will come later on. So you could split the credits between 2 project owners. At the most, 3 focal points could be selected as a part of the focal point 2 in the new LOA. And then you must subsequently move forward. This is the section where you need to sign off. This is issued by the legal owner. So the legal owner 1 needs to, sign off saying that I hereby authorize that everything that written here is correct and I entrust the responsibility. And herein comes the details of the guys who have been entrusted the DTA as project owner 1, project owner 2, and also they sign off saying that, yes, I take over the responsibility as project owner 1 or project owner 2. And because in this documentation, there's also an external representative herein. So they need to also sign off saying that we also accept the responsibility as given as the legal in the letter of authorization. So their sign off all between. Then comes the KYC form. The KYC form is for each of the entities who's therein. So you have one legal entity who's therein, 2 project owners. So you could just replicate this form by clicking herein. If you want, you can collapse them and take them out. So for today's demo, we will put in 1, which is the legal owner 1 with some dummy address and some legal form just to populate so that we don't get stuck. This is not mandatory. Registration number, something. We have 1 passport number, full name of some XYZ with an nationality and another dummy address. We could have an UBO who could have a different detail and a dummy address And then you have nothing to give as other associated companies who have no necessary link with this project. So it then says save the draft, review the form, and download. So once you download this, what happens is that this gives you a soft version of the authorization letter. So you need to get it signed off by all the entities at the end. So it will present with you a PDF form wherein all entities would need to sign off, stamp, put in their dates are already given therein, and that takes it to the next part of actually going back and submitting. So you have downloaded the letter of authorization, given it to each of these entities, and now you have the signed copy of the entities, right? So now what will happen is you will have to upload the LOA. So either you can update the LOA if you find that some information is missing, or the legal owner came back saying, no, I want another project owner to be added and stuff. You could update it, or you could just upload. So I'll use a dummy to upload. So you can upload the signed off LOA. So now once you have done it, so you got to wait for this letter of authorization to be accepted by GCC, because that's the point where you can move forward with the project activity, right? So once you have done that, it's under review. We can do nothing with it. So it will say, hold on, let GCC first go through and give you the authorization. So say, for example, admin of GCC will log in. So because the letter of authorization gives the details of everyone, who's the legal owner, who's the guy who's going to act, who's the guy who's not going to act. So they will look at approving the LOA. So he will be presented with these details of all the project and all. They can look at the LOA herein and decide whether to approve or to reject. If they want to reject, they could add comments saying that this is not okay, or this is not what is adding up in the whole documents. So let's move with the approving of the LOA. So just what happens is each of these steps that's triggered. For example, now the letter of approval is approved by the GCC. And the guy would then be able to move forward because he has been given the rights to do so. Each point would trigger a mail. So if this is the email ID. So the moment you have the letter of approval, has been approved by GCC, you have a unique PCN number assigned. And so what happens is that you get a email saying that your letter of authorization has been approved and you have been given a PCN number. That's good. So you can then again move on from that point on to move to the next part of it, which is actually submitting a project activity. So let's move on. So now you have the letter of authorization approved, and you want to now present the project activity from the next point on. So go forward, create a PSL. So the first thing that comes is a wizard. Wizard is created in order to be able to collect all the data, to be able to present it subsequently down the line of the project activity. So this is the project brief as it has been populated from your prior consideration form. The title comes automatically from therein. You can add any additional information. You say no additional info just for the sake of populating. You have already decided who's the focal point one. You have already decided what is the email ID. You have already decided who are the project owners. That's at the letter of authorization. You move to the next one, which is the sectoral scope. So you have sectoral scope. Say, for example, we are in a solar project with the sectoral scope 1. The moment you select the sectoral scope 1, all methodologies are mapped against sectoral scope 1. So you decide ACM 002, it will only present you the latest valid versions of ACM 002 to be able to select from. So what we do is that our backend team keeps, we have a consent with UNFCCC, so we scrap the UN site, and all updates with methodologies are automatically stored onto a port. And the validity is also therein. So whichever is the recent valid versions is the one you can choose from in this project activity. Yes, there might be projects where you have multiple methodologies. You can select multiple methodologies also herein. So for the sake of discussion, we punch in a number with respect to ton of CO2. Then you can select market eligibility. Obviously, GCC is the basic function, so you cannot take it out. And now you want to go for CORSIA first phase, that's okay. You want to go for a ICVCM, that's okay. You want to also opt for a 6.2 label, that's okay. So you can select labels as you want. Then it will ask you with respect to the crediting period. So you can have a fixed crediting period, or you can have a renewable crediting period. So when you want renewable crediting period, it will ask you the first and the last starting date and the end date of the first crediting period. If you go in for the fixed one, it will ask for the start date and the end date of the fixed crediting period. So you can select which is the project start date. It could be a futuristic project start date also. And you can always decide, no, I'm going to start from that point on for the next 10 years. So it's 24 to 34, December 20, say we choose 21 December, and we say, okay, let's move forward. The system will say you cannot select more than 10 years. We said, okay, good. Then I'm going to select a 10-year crediting period and move forward. So there are checks and balances in the system in order to be able to take care of those small mistakes that we keep, it comes on and off, so that our work is reduced, your work is reduced. Now, EL and BL are the new labels with respect to no harm determination based on legal requirements. And it's a minimum requirement. So it has to be by default, yes. You can also decide to select other labels, like I said, okay, I'll use the enhanced label as well, EBL as well, and the SBL as well. Now we come to SDG contributions for the project activity. SDG 13 is by default the minimum one. You can then start selecting from the ones that you want to use. So you may say, I'm going to demonstrate SDG 2. I'm going to demonstrate SDG 8. I'm going to demonstrate maybe something, SDG say 10. So the moment you keep selecting, your label correspondingly keeps changing. If you go more, the more the labels you add, it keeps moving along down the line based on the matrix that we have. If you take one out, obviously it's going to update based on that. So then obviously it's not a NR project, it's not a TR project because it's a regular project, neither as it has an NR plus label. And then you move to the next one. Now comes the deductions. So as Amit said, say for example, you're opting for a 6.2 label and you have a corresponding adjustment to be done, and by default you have a buffer contribution to be made, then you can have 15% buffer, system will automatically calculate. Or you have a project where you have the share, the country has an SOP value of 10% therein, it automatically calculates. So it calculates between the gross and the net from the project activity after the buffer deductions are done. Then you move forward in the project activity. Now comes the project location. So there are two ways of doing it. So we have a map box here. So you can directly punch in the lat long and go to it and make your project, select the sites and all, or you could choose a KML file. The moment you choose a KML file, the system renders the boundary of the project as per the KML file onto your map box. So here you see that it selects 3 points and 2 areas under the project boundary. So for example, you want to add a little more. So what happens is that, I forgot to do this. So you could add another boundary to the project activity in the map box and confirm it. Or you have another, maybe a wind turbine also somewhere which you forgot, you can add to it and you can confirm, you save it. So you basically have 3 areas and 4 area, 3 areas and 3 geographies, quadrangles. So then you go to the cover page, which is basically a rendering of all that you did previously. It comes up in the soft form. Just I'll take it to the end to understand that based on the map box, your geo coordinates for the system are automatically mapped here. So you will have site 1, the quadrangle, site 2, the second one, site 6 is the one which I added, the 3 points which were there, and the one that we added later on. So they are automatically taken from the map box and populated in your cover page. So it is for your ease that you don't need to punch in anything. So you go to the cover page. You don't have a submission number now, so there's nothing herein because submission number comes at a future point in time. Version, date, you already selected the focal points, the split of the credits. You've already decided which standard you're going to apply. You already decided which track type it is. Now we got to say what type of project is it, an A1 project or an A3 project, say A3 project. These are the confirmations that you need to make on the compliance requirements. So these are the minimum ones, but then because it's a legal document, we want you to choose all of them and confirm that you're going to comply with all these requirements. You may also want to separately provide later on the host country letter of authorization, the acquiring country letter of authorization, double counting, corresponding adjustment, and all. You've already selected the UN SDGs that you're going to approve in the project. You already selected the labels that you're going to opt for. You already have presented your expected credits, gross and net, and the deductions therein. You have already selected the methodology, the version number, the sectoral scopes. Now comes all these with respect to applicable rules and requirements. So you may have ISO 464 requirement complied for, host country legal requirement complied for, project standard certain version complied for, program definition certain version complied for. So you can keep populating them based on what versions you're applying in this project activity. You can also add, if you have any further, which is not listed herein. Then you have all the tools that you're going to use. You might use the tool for common practice and the investment analysis in this case, 6.2, 6.4. You confirm. So these are like the, the cover page that you have at this point is only a soft version of that. We have already taken A3 category projects or A3 category project. You have to take what is their confirmation. And finally, when you come, you got to sign it off. So it's the focal point prior, which is the external prior focal point who's got to sign off and signature. So when you go down, this is the letter of author to the cover page. You save the draft, review the form, download. Now note, when you download, you will first be given a template, which is the main form, and you'll be given the cover page rendered. So you'll have two documents therein. So one is the cover page, which you just filled up, which needs to be signed off and submitted, and the template, which is the main document, which you need to submit as a part of the project therein. So once you have done everything and you have everything ready, you'll be coming to a portion where all these forms should get uploaded. So you're going to submit first. I'll use the dummies herein for ease because these are small documents. It tells you what form. It's only PDF that we acknowledge with a certain size. So you can, the guidance is therein. The calculation sheet for your emission reductions has to go in. Your IRR calculation has to go in. If you want to have any private or public IRR, you can do it. Your environmental no harm assessment form has to go in. Your social no harm at this point in time is integrated with the environment, but we might have it separately later on. So we have provided the provisions. You have also a provision for uploading your demonstration of your social SDG impacts. There are, if you have anything extra, other documents, you can use a document tag herein, choose a file and upload it. So it doesn't limit you to these documents only. So you can select as many documents and upload as a part of your submission process. So you just need to select a tag from the drop down and submit it from that point on. So next move to the next part of it as to who's the billing guy, who's going to put in the money. So you have someone who's going to be billed to, put in the name, put in an email ID, put in the email address of that guy, have a contact number so that we can contact in case there's a problem, some tax ID, and you can submit the project finally to GCC when you have done your stuff. So once you have done and you have submitted your project, the project next moves to the next part of it, which is GCC is going to do a due diligence of all that you have done. So what will happen is before that, there's a payment that needs to be done. So what happens is the moment you submit a project, there's a registration fee that needs to come in. So the GCC finance guy knows there's a mail which has got triggered that there is a new project which has come up and we need to upload an invoice based on the fee schedule, which has to be paid in order to the processing to start. So the finance guy is going to log in into the portal and he's going to upload an invoice. So I'll use a dummy invoice and send it forward. So the moment the GCC finance guy uploads an invoice, at all point you'll get triggers, right? All through the mail point. So the invoice comes to you also on your mailbox and also on your system. So you are the project owner? So you know that an invoice has come to you and you have to pay it in order to be able to move forward in the project activity. And you also have a trigger on the mail. So you make a payment. You upload the proof of the payment. So you upload, choose a file where you, so now at this point in time, what we have done is we have allowed you to pay off the portal and upload the proof of payment herein. What will also have subsequently is that you could also pay on the portal using your, Visa or MasterCard. So that will be enabled at a later point in time. So at this point, you can upload a proof of payment on the portal. So once your proof of payment has been uploaded, it is waiting for the finance guy to say that the payment has been received. So the finance guy will get a trigger saying a payment has been made for a project. He will then check that whether the payment has hit the bank and whether he can confirm. So the moment he logs in, he also gets a trigger that a project has made a payment and he needs to approve the payment. So in order to be able to approve the payment, he will be taken to the project detail page. He will be able to see project details. If his invoice was supposed to be based on certain stuff and all, he can see whatever has been therein, and he can then decide to approve or to reject a payment. At times, what happens is that when you make a payment, a part of the money gets, deducted as a part of bank charges. We don't receive the full part of it. So we can say an approved partial payment with saying that this much amount is still pending, or he can say the whole amount has been pending or approved. He can approve it, or he can say it hasn't hit the bank, so the payment has not been received. So say, for example, we say that the payment is received and he approves the payment. So the moment he approves the payment, so his job is done. So the project gets activated that point on. So that comes to GCC for the initial check that all the documentation that has been provided is in line with what is required by the program. So for example, the tech lead, which is there from GCC, is the guy who's going to assign the project to an officer, GCC officer, in order to do this due diligence. So the tech lead, so all this point, your registration fee has been received, proof of payment has been submitted, and everything has come in. So the next point is GCC has to do something. So what will happen is he's going to assign a tech lead, a officer for the project activity, right? Tushar, can you log in as the admin guy and assign GCC officer 1 and let me know? I can't see your chat, so I don't know. Let me see. Okay, so this project has come. So now the officer has been assigned by the admin that he has got to perform the documentation check. So when he goes to check the documents, he has the whole project in front of him. He knows all that has been submitted as a part of the project activity. He is presented with the soft version of this documentation and consistency check. He can say that whether everything is okay as per his checklist or there might be something which is not okay. He can add a comment saying this is not okay, or he can say no, it's okay. Say for example, he leaves like this and he says everything is fine. Let's assign a number to it and let it move forward. The system will say no, you said something is not okay. So either you take it out, or it might happen you said not okay. You did not put in what is not okay and you want to move it forward. Then also the system is going to say that's not okay. You got to say what is not okay. So everything is fine. Okay, let's assign a number. Is confirmation that you want to move it to the next stage. So the project has been acknowledged that everything has been received for the project activity. The project can now move onwards to the next part of it. The next part of it is basically assigning a verifier for the project activity or a validator for the project activity. So the project owner knows that the submission number has been awarded to the project activity. He can now go on to select a validator for the project activity. We will be using the words verifier, validator interchangeably because 1.0 says verifier, project verifier, 2.0 says a validator. So it might be a little confusing at times, okay? So say, for example, I'm a project owner, I decide I'm going to choose a verifier. So he will be presented a list of verifiers on the sectoral scope. And once he selects, for example, he says verifier 1, he will be presented with a data on how many assignments are there with this verifier. And of that, how many are still pending, hasn't been submitted with the request for registration. So because there were certain inputs coming from the stakeholders saying that we haven't confirmed, we should know that how is a verifier loaded in order to be able to select one or a validator. So this data is presented before that, right? So he selects a verifier, which is a verifier 1 for this activity and is assigned. The moment the verifier or the validator is selected for the project activity, the project goes out into a global stakeholder consultation page. So this is the public view page where I haven't logged into that. So when you go to the GSC, it lists out the project saying this project is now open for global stakeholder consultation for a period of 1 month. It hasn't received any comment. If you are a public stakeholder, you can go and comment on it. In order to be able to comment, it will give you a soft form. You as a stakeholder would have to give all your details so that in case we need to telephonically confirm your details, you can put that in. Punch in your email ID, and then you can say what is wrong. So you can say one is in the PSF document in section number A.1, I did not like something. You can keep adding. You can say number 2 is that in the emission reduction sheet, there was something wrong. So you can have something therein. And you can submit your comment. You can also upload documents. For example, you are a representative of a local community who has certain problems with the project activity, you would like to voice certain concern, or you found something was off of this project activity in public domain, you'd like to submit it as a part of the global stakeholder consultation. You can choose a file, you can choose a dummy file, and that can also be submitted as a part of the global stakeholder consultation. So that will be considered by the validator at the time of validation, because that's also a comment which is coming. Okay. So the moment you select and you submit your comment would now become visible. So when you again go back to the global stakeholder consultation page, for all project activities which are listed therein, it would say how many comments have been received, and people can keep adding comments as they want, right? So now this is going to go on for 1 month. So Tushar, can you please take it out of GSC? So whom did we assign? We assigned verifier 1. To take over this project activity. So till this point, the verifier was not being able to work on this project activity because the project was under GSC and there were comments yet to be coming to him. So he cannot do anything with this project activity till the time that the project comes out of the global stakeholder consultation period. So now the project has come out of the global stakeholder consultation period. Now he can continue doing the validation of the project activity. But first thing first, he has to confirm before taking over the job that he doesn't have a conflict of interest in this project activity. So he can just click on this and he can submit. Okay, saying that I do not have a conflict. If he has, he can toggle it. It will say I have a conflict of interest, and it will go back to the project owner saying this verifier says he has a conflict of interest. Please select another verifier. So he needs to go to the other one. Good enough. That's confirmed. He can then move forward. Now he can request a registration of the project activity if he has completed the validation of the project, or he can, if he finds that the project will need updation, he can send the project back to the focal point to update all the documentation. Now, say for example, he's okay with everything, all the issues have been closed out and stuff. He wants to request the registration of the project activity. He can decide upon whether he wants to give a positive opinion or a negative opinion. If he says it's a negative opinion, he will be asked what is that condition ground on which he gives a negative opinion. If you have already gone to a project standard, there's a list of stuff, all the fields or the reasons he can choose from to give a negative opinion. He wants to do a positive opinion. He will be presented with a request for registration form. So like others, the request for registration form is also something which is in the soft version. Because it's on the testing portal, it takes a little time to render anyway. So this is the request for registration form in which most of the information have already been populated based on what is therein selected previously. He only needs to punch in the latest versions based on which he has taken an opinion, right? He says, I have these documents with me. So it gives you the dates. He can choose and pick. He can choose the dates based on the latest versions on which he is forming an opinion. He can then enter all that he has for therein, and he says, this is on which I am giving my opinion. He can then save the draft, review the form, and download and send it to the project owner to sign it off, because it's ultimately the focal point who's going to sign off and saying they agree that the opinion of the validator is based on these set of documents. So that's done. Okay, good. So the next part of it, which is the wizard. So now you already have the RFR form signed off. So you have to confirm all that the project owner had said. So the project owner said, there was no additional info. The verifier will say, my verification opinion is positive for the project. You generally write much more stuff, but I'm writing a brief one. Then he's going to confirm the rest of the details are okay. He knows that the project has selected from sectoral scope 1, methodology this is the emission reductions that's claimed. He can then decide now this project does not qualify for CORSIA or it qualifies for CORSIA. If it doesn't, he will send back the project saying this is not okay. But if it says no, everything is fine, he'll confirm saying this is fine. He might say no, the labels are not correct. So he may say no, I don't give you the ELBL label. You haven't demonstrated. I don't give you platinum because I think 1 is not demonstrated. I also don't think 2 is demonstrated. So the label automatically changes based on which the SDGs that he takes out, and he can confirm that this is my conclusion, that although he had asked for platinum, I'm going to give you silver only because you don't have the others. This is only a confirmation that all these are applied correctly, and then he's going to go to the project submission, whereas he needs to upload all the documents. So the registration form comes in. Again, dummy for the ease, the verification report comes in, or the validation report in the same. You may choose to also submit a validation report in confidence, in confidential mode. The emission reduction sheet comes in. The SDG impact documentation comes in. The environmental no harm. The social no harm, if it's a different document, then yes, you got the same one. IRR documentation comes in, so maybe a dummy. Anything in confidence, no. Verified PSF comes in. So these are the mandatory set of documents that needs to be submitted, and they may select from the document tag to also submit any other documents which is relevant for the project activity. They can choose from the document tag, choose the file, upload it, have multiple uploads therein. What is also unique for us is they have to mandatorily upload 2 images from the site. There are specific instructions on what these images should be. The photo of this picture should be related to the main equipment of the project activities. For example, maybe the inverter, the turbine, with the site personnel of the project owner in view, and the validator, the verifier, the local expert visiting the site in the frame of the picture. The picture must be clear. Background equipment should be clearly indicatable. So you have a clear guideline on what to upload as a part of the site. So we know that there has been a site visit which has been carried out, and there has been people on site to look at the project. If you have done a remote audit, then take a snapshot of your remote audit and upload it. There is also a requirement of providing a video of the site as you have seen it. So it's not a direct video. You actually provide an URL where your video has been hosted. This is to limit the size of the documents that can go in. You can keep adding as many pictures as you want, as many videos as you want, but at a minimum 2 pictures, 1 video. This finalizes your submission of the request for registration to GCC. So the moment you submit this then goes to the next part of it, which is GCC's job of actually doing a due diligence on the project activity. So what will happen is Tushar, again, the tech lead or the admin to select Officer 1.
Hello, Shivendu, everything
Yeah.
okay? Yeah,
Yeah, no,
okay.
I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting for Tushar to
Okay.
because it's awaiting scheduling, so it has to be posted to Officer 1.
Yeah, I hope all the participants are able to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
the
little
screen.
crazy, but then it's okay. You will be able to catch up later on.
Okay, so we're getting thumbs up, so it means people are following it. Good.
Tushar, any problem? I think tech lead to Officer 1. Okay. So now it has been assigned to the officer. So now the officer gets in his queue a project which has to be taken to detailed assessment. He can do it himself or he can assign an expert in this project activity. Say, for example, so there are a roster of experts which are there with GCC who takes care of, these detailed assessments, or it might happen that the officer himself takes up the detailed assessment. So, say, for example, the officer decides that he's going to do the detailed assessment himself. So this detailed assessment is also on the portal in a soft version using the checklist that is already there on a domain. So he has this whole stuff of doing it. He will have his actual date when he's submitting based on when he's doing it. He is presented this long list of checklist of saying yes, no, okay, not okay, minor, major issues and all. So for example, of the discussion, just so that we don't have an issue, he can always say not okay, raise an issue herein, also raise it as a final observation. That will create a clarification note that will go to the next part of the discussion, but we are running out of time. So we will say everything is okay. We don't have any issue in this project activity. And all these checkpoints are checked that everything is okay. We don't have anything to say in this project activity. It might happen that they decide to also upload documents as a part of the process. So if they're going to fill everything, save the draft, and final. And so it says fill in. So because what I did is I clicked herein. It said this field is required. So the thing that there is an issue when I toggled herein, actually there is no issue herein. Okay. If I do therein, but it's okay. It says you want to confirm to submit. So it says no observation was reported. So the project will go to something that's internal to GCC, which is a summary note preparation. So the moment I submit this DA, that means everything is fine in this project activity. There are no issues in this project activity. If it had been there had been issues in the project activity, it would have raised the clarification note, which would then been taken to the next part of the project activity, right? So now this is the officer. So he has to also prepare a summary note. The summary note is basically presenting a project internally to our project approval committee and to our steering committee for an approval. So that's also a soft version wherein why we see that the project has complied with all the requirements which are there in GCC. Everything is fine in this project activity. Just to understand how the project looks like, because we have been talking so much, let's go back, maybe a step back and see what all can we see in this project. So if you look at the project itself, this is how the project would get rendered. So it will on the top tell you where the project has moved. So it shows it's with DA1, it is yet to go to steering committee approval, yet to be approved. It will tell you the project details. It will tell you what was the details of the goals which was forecasted and what was finally validated or verified. What were the labels which were forecasted, and what was given by the validator verifier? What are the technical details of this project activity? What are the market eligibilities? Which are the documents? So each document that the project owner or the focal point uploads is presented hearing with a clear timeline of when it was presented. So all the version histories are maintained on the portal. It gives all that the verifier or the validator had uploaded and when did they upload. So all the documents as submitted by the validator is there on the portal. It gives all the GSC submissions that has been there. It renders the map box, all the semi-dynamic forms, because these forms are forms which are in the PDF format, right? So these are separately listed, and all which are semi-dynamic forms which are in the soft version are listed here. So the officer has a view to everything, the images, the videos, and we have an audit trail. That is, if he clicks on timeline, he will get a detailed view of who did what in this project activity with specific timelines as to when the LOA was approved, when the focal point submitted PSF, when was the invoice raised, when was the proof of payment uploaded, when was it approved. So we have a detailed audit of who did what, using which user did it, at what point in time stage of the project was done, what was done herein, and what is the time stamping. So all this is available to the officer in order to be able to take care of any potential scenarios that we may come up later on with respect to the project activity. So we were at the stage that the summary note had to be prepared to be presented to the steering committee. The steering committee had to give their approval of the project activity. Then only the project would get approved in GCC. So as you can see, there are multiple checks and balances within GCC for a project to get approved. After the verifier has done the job, the officer does the job, the project approval committee does the job, the steering committee finally decides yes or no. So this is the summary note. It gives a reference to the number, the verification report number, the project subtype, which is there, and if it is an A2 type project, it's A3 project, creating period taken up automatically, gross and net, whether they're requesting for an automatic registration, what are the recommendations that if they feel that everything is perfect and the project should go through, what is the description of the project, GHG, any comments, any request for review, comments. So we'll just run through, saying everything is okay, they don't have an issue, and we're going to save it and we're going to submit it. So do you want to submit? Yes, let's go ahead with submitting the steering to the pack. So there is a project approval committee which is there within GCC. So all the members of the GCC who were involved in this approval system comes forward in the project approval committee. So the pack has a login. So the project approval committee also gets their emails saying this is happened, and obviously we can again go back and see what does the project owner know. So he knows whether it's scheduled, and he knows that after the scheduling, it is in the detailed assessment stage that the project is in. So the project approval committee sees that there is a summary note which has come. They can look at the summary note and decide whether everything has been filled up. What does it say? They can look at the project and see all the documents therein, and then they can decide whether they want to send to the steering committee for approval. They feel no, the summary note has certain things which needs to be modified. They can send it back to the officer with the comments. They feel there are substantial comments in the project activity which needs to be taken care by the project owner. They can send it to DA2, send for clarification. For the efficiency and time limit, we're going to send it to the steering committee saying everything is fine. There's no comments in this project activity. Let the steering committee decide on the project activity. So the project has now gone for steering committee review. So let's come in as a steering committee member. So say steering committee member number 1 logs in. And if just for understanding, what will happen is each of these roles that we have created and each of these activities have a timeline to it by which they have got to give their opinion. Whether the verifier has to opine, whether we have to do a due diligence, everything has a target deadline therein. So steering committee member receives that on the 17th, he's received a project to give his comments and he has a deadline till the 27th. So if you see it comes with an amber color, that means it's to be done. The moment it passes the deadline, obviously his action point goes out, they cannot do, and it turns red, that means he hasn't done anything with it. Same for the officer, same for experts, same for everyone. Everyone has a timeline, a deadline to comply with. So he can look at the summary note as a part of the detailed assessment 1, and he can give his review comments. He can see all details of the project under the submission page. So he sees and he says, okay, whether he has an issue, he doesn't have an issue. So he can say whether, yeah, I decide to register the project activity. If he has any observation, he's going to say, what is his observation? And he has got to say, which rule does it not comply with? He can have multiple observations, or he can collapse the whole thing. He say, I don't have any observation. He might have clarifications. He might want something to be clarified. He might have improvement points. He might say that this is something that could be improved further in this project activity or these submissions that you are doing to us. So he can decide on everything that he wants and he submits his documents. So the moment it's submitted, his job is done, that the steering committee has already provided their opinion with respect to this project activity. So he cannot reverse, he cannot take back his comments. It's gone, it's out of his hands. So for our ease, we will maybe log in as another steering committee, say steering committee 3. So he logs in also. The steering committee 3 is yet to give his opinion, so he can also give his opinion. He has this timeline, deadline by which he's got to give his opinion. He can again look at the documents, form his opinion. He might have, okay, it can be registered, but I think there is something that can be improved further in this project, in this type of submissions. I'm not clear it. I want this to be also provided to me because I don't think that all the info is therein. So depending upon the matrix, there is an outcome decision at the bottom. That means he knows that if he raises an objection, what will happen? If he raises a clarification, what will happen? If he raises an improvement point, what will happen? So 2 of the steering committee members have already given the opinion. Tushar, can you take it out of the 10-day steering committee meeting period so that I can then log in as an officer? So it was the officer who had made the summary note. So he's the guy who's going to receive finally all the comments from the steering committee members, because it might happen that he needs to give a clarification to certain stuff and all. So it's still under review. So they're updating at the back end. It takes a little time because to update. Takes generally a minute. So the steering committee, so that's what I said, that depending upon which are the action points which are pending, it will get highlighted, So even if the officer logs in, he knows that these are the ones which are pending on his point. So he has yet to do this. The moment it goes beyond the trigger. So just for your information, for the verifier, for the officer, for the expert, everything is timeline driven. And each, anywhere he slips the timeline is an input to the module that we talked of, which is expert module, the verifier module and all, and it gets scored against the performance. So if they miss any timeline, then that gets a negative scoring on the performance of that entity. So all these are inputs to the subsequent modules which are with respect to management of all these entities. So now the consolidated form has come in. So the officer can see all that the steering committee members have. So there was no observations which were raised, which needs to be taken care of. There was only an improvement point. An improvement point made by the steering committee automatically goes to the regulatory committee, because the regulatory committee decides upon further improvements to the process. So that input automatically gets populated as another document that goes to the regulatory committee. In this project activity, there was no adverse comments that came from each of the steering committee. So he can then send it to the PAC and saying, okay, everything is fine. The steering committee member did not raise any comment. I do not see that why the project should get rejected or should go back for DA2 for the project. If there are comments which are substantial in nature, then it will go back to DA2, which is the second round of the detailed assessment. So the detailed assessment can get triggered either as a part of the output of DA1, can be triggered if the project approval committee during the initial review found out certain comments which needs to be taken care of, or the steering committee, 2 or more members of the steering committee raised the same issue that this needs to be taken care of. So any of them would trigger the next round of DA. So in this, everything was fine. There was no issues in this. So the PAC receives the feedback from the officer saying that this project has passed through PAC, has passed through steering committee. Everything is fine in this project activity. I think it's time that we can register. Now he can see the recommendation, they are done, the consolidated, and then they can decide whether to approve the project, or if a 6.2 project and the government during the authorization has said, I need to clear the registration of the project activity as a part of the host country approval, they can send it to the host country for their approval. They can decide that there are multiple issues in this project activity and it cannot be registered, so they can decide not to register based on the output of the steering committee. If they find there are more clarifications that it needs to move to DA2, they can send it subsequently to DA2. He says, no, everything is fine. They can decide to approve the project activity. Then it is supposed to be approved successfully and it will land up on the approved project list. So I took the least path to explain to you how the project portal would. So this is show up as approved project. If you go to the public domain page and go to the approved project list, then it would show up on the approved list with the credits, with the verified goals, with the labels and everything herein. So it gets listed on our website. There are further details which are going to come herein. So it's in the work in progress on this page. So this is a brief. I think it's already we are already 1 hour 45 minutes when we started the whole thing. So this is a brief overview of how the portal looks like. Who are the different players who are involved? How do they interact with each other? How does a project flow? So if I may come back to that slideshow on the registration, what did we do? Can we see this page?
So, so are we done, Shubhendu?
No. I'll just show this one. So what did we do? We took the project through from start to an account opening, to prior consideration, to letter of authorization, to project submission, to an initial document check, global stakeholder consultation, validation process, opinion, detailed assessment, summary note, project approval committee, steering committee, project approval committee to approved. So this is all that we have done in this iteration. If there were issues, it would move to this part, which is round number 2, round number 3, RFR, and it would come back to this stage of an approval process. What would also happen in between is if the validation does not complete within 1.5 years herein, then the project would go into expired mode. And it would go back to the focal point to again upload the document based on the latest version. They would again come back to the validation part of it. So that is something that we haven't shown you, but that's also a part of the project flow herein. So I'll stop herein. So do we have questions on the registration workflow?
Raise your hands, or if you want to ask question, you can raise your
Or
hands
you can
also.
put it in the chat maybe.
I can see Dinesh, so I would like to give
Somebody has to
opportunity to
unmute
Dinesh.
him.
Dinesh, yes, you have.
No,
You have the
unmute.
opportunity.
Can you unmute Dinesh?
Let me check. Hello, Mike. Okay. No, I can't do that. Who has the Dinesh? Can you? Oh yeah.
I can
Yeah.
speak to
Yeah,
thanks
please.
both of you. Shubhan, the wonderful job. Quick question in terms of assigning the validation.
We can't hear you clearly.
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
you be
yeah. I can hear you. Tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, regarding the selection of validators, it goes automatically, as you said. And the contract between the project developer and the validator happens offline, and then they agree, right? So in terms of how you assign, is that you are not pushing them to select one validator. They decide based on the number of projects they have in hand.
Right. Right.
And therefore you're only suggesting and not.
We're not suggesting. It's actually the stakeholders had come back saying that I need to know how many assignments is this validator already dealing with, so that I can have an informed decision whether I'm going to go for it or he's overloaded. I should look for a second validator and all. So it's providing an information input to the project owner or the focal point to decide on which validator he can go for.
Exactly. Right. That's what I wanted to ask you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Dinesh. Before I take more questions, I would first request all of you to open your microphones. Sorry, not microphones, your cameras, so we can take the picture. We forgot to take the picture, right? I said it earlier, but probably we forgot.
You have to activate our cameras.
Yeah, activate the cameras and the one.
Yeah, Anam will do that.
Yeah. I already see another hand requesting.
Yeah. Let's wait for a few minutes. Let's let people open their. So let's take the pictures first. Shubhendu, if you allow.
Our cameras are not activated yet.
So, Anam, is it possible? Please activate the cameras.
So we have already switched on everyone's camera. They can switch on the cameras.
Yeah, just click on the cameras. Yes.
I don't know. I can see that I need to also allow.
So maybe
by the time it happens, I'll take the question maybe.
Okay, people cannot open the cameras. So just Anam, please look into this in the meantime.
Yes,
so
sir.
we'll continue the questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So I see there was a hand by
Sudhindra.
Who asked? Sorry, yeah.
Sudhindra, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? Because I've already allowed.
Sudhindra, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
No, it's still on mute.
You have to just click your there's an icon. There's an icon for the microphone.
No,
Surendra, just you can enable it.
By the time you figure out.
Right click on this and choose, enable microphone. Right click on the microphone.
Okay, any other question in the meantime from any other participant?
Okay, is it okay now?
Yeah, yes, okay. Yeah, please.
Yeah, this I am Sudhindra here.
Yep.
This 15 megawatt constraint, when it is going to happen? Effective from February 2025 or when this 2.0 takes off?
So, okay, let me try to answer it. The thing is, Corsia has already approved us on 30 by definition. They sent us email to us on 30th or 31st of this year, October. So then they have asked us only to give labels to those projects which are less than 15 megawatt. So by definition, we have to comply it from that date, even though GCC 2.0 starts from that date onwards. So which means we have already implemented this decision from that date.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Because see, try to understand. If we do not do so, Yeah, if we do not do so, then at a later point in time, we can the Corsair will not accept that first phase label. So it's no point. I think it's better to do it sooner the best. Yes, Kishore.
But can I just add here that 15 megawatt does not apply to our normal track.
Yes.
It is only applicable to Corsair track. So projects can apply to GCC under the normal track. 15 megawatt is only restriction for Corsair level, not for anything else.
So yes, more projects more than 15 megawatt, you can apply for Article 6.2 from 1 Feb 2025 if you get letter of authorization. But letter of authorization is needed at issuance. So you can submit your project with the anticipation that host country letter will be provided to you, and then you will at least utilize the time. You will not lose the time, because it takes quite a bit of time to get project registered. But also, if you want to continue in voluntary markets, keep on submitting projects. You can process your projects in the voluntary carbon markets. Okay, Saurabh, I think you have the floor. You can ask your question.
Please unmute yourself first.
Right click.
Yeah, hi, I'm
Okay.
audible. So Amit,
Yes.
thanks for the presentation. So my question is, we are registered with the GCC for 8 different projects in 2022 with EKI as a consultant, and we have 8 different projects starting from 15 megawatt to 300 megawatt. And now we have reached to a stage of registration after 2 years. But now with a state of disclarity, now ICVCM coming into picture, GCC 2.2 coming into picture. So where our projects are going to stand at this juncture? Are these projects going to be a sunk cost, or these projects are going to be live?
Yeah. So first of all, I think I think I responded to your question, but maybe you had further questions. So the first thing is you have to decide, do you want to continue with GCC 1.0? If yes, you can do so and supply to voluntary carbon markets. But if you want to take advantage of different labels, either Corsia first phase or maybe ICVCM, which will come a later point in time. So you should move to 2.0, but it's ultimately your decision. You have to take a call. So we're planning to send a survey to all the project owners, informing them or asking them, please let us know, are you interested to move to GCC 2.0? And if you plan to do so, by what date you want to do so? So based on those, we'll compile everything and we'll make a schedule, and we'll have to prepare the migration plan of the projects that are already in GCC 1.0 to 2.0. And then once that happens, your projects will, there were also questions from certain, participants. What happens to our projects if they are, will they have to start from scratch all over again? No. So wherever you are in the portal to 1.0, you will start from there. So you will not be disadvantaged.
Yeah, just to further clarify,
Yes.
You might have a project which is already registered under 1.0. So you may decide to continue in 1.0, or you can migrate to 2.0. You have a project which is under registration. You have already submitted a request for registration, is under processing. You have a 1-year period by which you can complete under 1.0, or you can migrate to 2.0 and continue from that point onwards. So it depends upon you, what you want to do with the project. It just moves forward. There is no starting from scratch from that point onwards,
So if we continue with the 1.0, then those issuance are called as non-ICVCM carbon credits?
Yeah, yes, because
Of course,
1.0 did not have those specific labels, right? Under 1.0, we did not have ICVCM label. We did not have Corsair first phase. We did not have Article 6.2. These are labels which have come in as a part of GCC 2.0. So if you want to get those labels, you have to migrate to 2.0. That means you have to then resubmit the whole documentation with only filling in the forms and giving it to us and ensuring that the compliance with the standard is taken care of, which might be like host country letter of authorization has to be given and stuff. That's it.
So that cost is going to be very less for those non-ICVCM carbon credits if we are going for ICVCM carbon credits in terms of cost. If those
I mean, that's the market to decide whether how much they're going to pay for a non-ICVCM credit and an ICVCM credit. But obviously, if it's an ICVCM credit, credibility is high, you're going to get a better realization. So you would like to move to 2.0.
I think
One
today
last question on
also,
this. Yes, sorry,
yeah,
please.
just no, today also there was one LinkedIn post where it was said that UK is anticipating a penalty of about £100 per ton of in case the CORSIA compliance is not done by the airlines. So I think there are indications that the carbon price would be higher for CORSIA. It will be higher for Article 6.2. Obviously, it seems like it should be high also for ICBCM, but the extent to which which will get a higher price out of those market, we have to see it to see. We don't know as of now. So we cannot really give conclusion on this. And frankly, we do not monitor prices because it's not our job to look at prices. We're doing our job to register projects or to assess projects independent of the prices, because that's not our purpose. Yeah, you had one more question, I think, Saurabh. Perhaps
Yeah.
I will give you a chance, then I will give
Yeah.
chance to others also.
Yeah, please. Two last questions. So one is our 300 megawatt project is going to qualify under the additionality clause, or it is going to debar for GCC 2.0, or how it is going to be taken care. And the last thing, what we have faced in the last 2 years, there is non-clarity on the timelines what GCC is going to taken in doing the registration or validation or issuance. So it is kind of vice versa. Queries are coming in, clarification is going down, queries are coming in, clarification going down. So it is like a kind of non-clarity towards the auditors, in front of auditors, what we have witnessed when we have dealing with EKI, that there is a non-clarity of the timelines, that how much time is going to take to issue the to complete the registration process going forward. And
So-
first is like issue our 300 megawatt projects are coming under this additionality clause or not?
So you mean to say that what will happen to the projects that are more than 15 megawatt, right?
Yes.
So as I said, for projects that are under 15 megawatt, above more than 15 megawatt, they cannot qualify for CORSIA first phase, but they can qualify for Article 6.2. Currently, under Article 6.2, there are no requirements that projects more than 15 megawatt will not be allowed. So in terms of the additionality under GCC 2.0, the same additionality rules apply. On the top of this, the requirements are that prior consideration of carbon revenues will be part of it, number one. And number two, if you are if such projects are allowed under ICBCM, which we don't know, ICBCM has just indicated that once the new methodologies come up and new tools come up, we may approve renewable energy projects. So we don't know what their stand is as of now. Final stand is. So let's assume that they allow it. So then you can also apply for ICBCM. In that case, you will have to also demonstrate that the carbon revenues are essential element to overcome the financial barrier, to overcome the benchmark. Shubhendu, you want to add something on this?
Yeah, I mean, see, the fact is that your project will get registered as it is going to happen. Which market it is going to go to will get decided by the eligibility of the market. So your project additionality stands, it gets approved. Now, whether you can apply to CORSIA first phase, no, because it is more than 15 megawatt. Whether you can apply for 6.2, yes, at this point in time, because 6.2 does not bar you from application, provided you have the host country letter of authorization. Whether you can apply for ICBCM depends upon whether ICBCM allows large-scale project activities when they assess a program and say yes. So it depends upon each market's eligibility condition. But as a project, additionality determined, it goes forward, it gets registered, it issues credit. Which market it sells to depends upon the eligibility conditions.
Okay.
So,
and on timelines?
Thank you. On the timeline,
Just
okay.
one month, yeah, just one. As I said, you had indefinite number of iterations under 1.0, you have only 3 iterations under 2.0. So the moment you migrate to 2.0, you have 3 chances, 3 iterations to follow,
and the
in which it will
timelines,
get decided.
yeah, and the timelines are given there in the program process document. Look at that document, you will find all the timelines. So even under GCC 1.0, if I look at all the time that the GCC program has to take as per the procedure is just 35 days. The rest of the time is spent by between the verifier and the project owner, and we have no control over that time, right? Under 2.0, there are timelines also for verifiers. There are timelines also for project owners to respond to. So which means that it will bring more predictability about the timelines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have one more.
I mean, we should take the picture before all of us disappear,
I
because
think
4 o'clock is already, we should take first picture and then
yes.
we can
So
continue.
cameras, what about and what about Anam, what about the cameras? Or do we have cameras?
So we have already given the access to everyone to switch on their cameras, but I see quite a number of them are not switching on the cameras, so they are camera shy right now.
So yeah, I would request you all if you can open your camera. I think it will be good to have a picture together. Let me. So you have to choose the gallery view. No, what is that view? Together mode, right? Or large gallery.
So we have done for the maximum number of participants
Okay, take
on one
a picture,
page.
whatever is possible. I can see a lot of people on my screen.
Yes, sir.
Different frames of different people, on cameras.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not there.
Yeah.
I'm not there, but others are. So okay. So alert us when you are taking the pictures.
Sure, sir. So I'm just taking the screenshots. So
Okay.
You got to take, I think, 8 screenshots for 8 different frames.
3 pages, sir.
2 pages, good.
Yep.
Okay. So are we done?
Almost. Yes, sir. We are done.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for helping us to in this process. Okay. So I would now. I think there was a request for the floor from someone.
Yeah, Constantine, you had something?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Please.
Well, I still had the question, if I can ask that. Is
Yeah,
that
please.
okay?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, the question is about we have a project which is not CRC, it's going to be not CRC eligible, and probably not ICVCM and not CCP eligible, but it's of course GCC 1, and we are considering E+, S+ labels still. But there will be GCC 2. So to understand correctly, that we can complete the project now, complete the issuance, and maybe issue E+, S+ labels still, right?
Yes.
But if we would like to, for whatever reason, if we would like then to use, like GCC 2, will we have to kind of revalidate the project or?
I said that's what. I mean, once validated, it's validated. If you want to apply GCC 2.0 and approach the other markets which are opened up because of 2.0, you would have to do an eligibility check with the market requirements that's therein, no validation therein. So, for example, you want to change over from E+ to EL and EBL, then you have to see the requirements of EBL standard and see whether you want to stick to EL or you want to change to EL plus EBL also. That is, you want to comply with legal requirements as well as go beyond legal. So then your documentation would change, right? You would have one compliance demonstrated against EL, one against EBL. So there's no revalidation. It's only about when you go to the new market, the market requirement says that you got to do this. Say, for example, what Amit said, if ICVCM is something that gets approves GCC, you want to go to ICVCM, then you have to prove that the carbon revenues would help you in overcoming the benchmark, right? If it is a requirement, then that has to be complied with. If it is some certain other markets which are a different kind of a requirement, it says that you have to comply with the methodological requirement. The new methodology that is approved under ICVCM can only be applied to the label. Then you have to update it to the new methodology, but not additionality per se.
So did you get
do I have to repeat like valid, because I will use the new guiding documents, right?
Yeah.
I will use the new environment and social no harm guidance.
I understand what you're saying. The only thing is that how would you go about doing it is through a PRC process. GCC 1.0 to 2.0 is a post-registration change for projects which are already registered. there's a requirement that you need to come up with a change document. In that change document, you're going to say, what is the change? If it requires a prior approval of GCC, that is the change needs a revalidation, then it would need a revalidation. If
Right.
it's
Thank
not,
you.
then no.
Okay, it's clear. And another
So,
one question
yeah,
about the
just one thing.
CCP eligibility, because
Yeah,
you
just,
have the
Amit.
guiding documents for the CCP eligibility now at your website, but
Yes.
you are not yet CCP eligible according to the
Correct.
ICVCM, because you will
Correct.
submit the request, or you have submitted already. Do we have to expect that you will revise that document in the future based on the outcome of the
Yeah.
ICVCM assessment?
So let me give you an update. Yesterday only I got an update from ICVCM that by first week of January, they will inform us about some kind of initial outcome. So based on that, we will have to see what will change, what will not change. But in terms of, I would say, because right now we have applied, we have not indicated which methodologies would be eligible or not eligible. So therefore, I do not see there would be changes in that document. I do not foresee at this point in time, of course. So it looks to me that that document will not undergo change. The only change it will be that, it will mention that the GCC is probably approved under the ICVCM. Right? So I do not foresee. Of course, I cannot tell with 100% confidence because I cannot predict the future, of course. I don't know what they will come up with. But it seems to me, perhaps we have also been approved under CORSIA. First phase, it seems to me there won't be much changes that they will suggest to us. I don't know about what stand they will take on renewable energy, which we don't know anyway. They have said that new methodologies have to be submitted, and we are also submitting. Well, Kishore already said that we are working on a new version of the methodologies where we will, have those requirements. So at this point in time, what I will do, because registration process takes quite a bit of time, right? So I would still go ahead, prepare PSF, keep everything ready, and then hopefully by that time we should get some clarity from ICVCM as well.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so any more questions? If you want to ask more questions, I think we have some questions on in the chat box. If we don't have any requests now, so I will switch to chat box. I know we are little over time. We had time till 4, but I think we can spend a bit of time with the people. So there were some questions. I think
Amit sir, there's a question from Maria.
Maria, yeah.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I was trying to
Please,
on the phone. Hi. I sent this question in the chat as well, and I think many people had this question. That is, so first you said that for projects that are 1.0, right now we have a project that is still completing validation, and we plan to register it in 1.0 so we don't lose the process. And you said we have until end of 2025 to complete registration. So I wanted to understand if that means we have until end of 2025 to submit the request for registration, or if that includes the GCC review period. And if that includes the GCC review period, then how long should we consider for that? Because that is not in our control, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. I think there were questions, similar questions also from many of you on what will happen to the projects, existing projects, what are the deadlines, what are the timelines. So I would request my colleague Joseph to present few slides that will give you some clarity on this process. Of course, we call this document as a transition plan. This will provide you full requirements from our side, what will happen to the older projects, new projects, by what date has to be submitted, what will be implications. It will be published by middle of January. That's what we see. However, we have some initial ideas about this, so we are going to present you to give you some clarity on what can possibly happen, right? Okay. Joseph, please.
Yeah. Because of some display setting issue, I cannot put it full screen, but I hope you guys can see my screen. Okay. See, as there were a lot of questions about this transition and things. See, we would like to clarify one thing, that like the current webinar was focusing mostly on how to use the GCC new portal for transition to 2.0. There was a separate webinar which happened before COP, which spoke about overall about 2.0, how transition happens and so on and so forth. So one aspect we could see that in the chat, and many people who are asking a lot of questions on this, maybe they didn't attend the previous webinar which we had exclusively on 2.0, but nevertheless, like, it's our responsibility to answer all the queries whenever it's raised. So see, as of now, the plan is like to go for 2.0 from 1st February 2025. There can be changes here and there, but like 1st February 2025 is the plan, and there is a transition phase and a mandatory phase for 2.0. So the transition phase is from 1st February 2025 and ends at 31st January 2026. And mandatory phase starts from 1st February 2026. So this is very clear. So what happens to the projects in various stages during this transition phase? So one thing is very clear, that any new submission, when we say any new submission, any fresh submission, any new project which people want to submit to GCC from 1st February 2025 onwards, it has to be in 2.0, any new submissions. Okay. Okay. So what happens to existing submissions? So a lot of queries were coming on existing submissions. Let's go little deeper. Existing submission, whatever project has been submitted, can be in various stages. So one most foremost stage is that the project global stakeholder consultation, shortly called as GAC, has not yet started. If the GAC is not yet started, that means the project has been initially submitted to GCC, is undergoing complaint check, and the global stakeholder consult is not started by 31st January 2025. These all projects will be mandatorily moved to 2.0. Okay, so that means any project for which GAC is not started on or before 31st January 2025 will be mandatorily moved to 2.0. Okay, so now a lot of questions have come for the project which is under verification or validation, whatever term we use. What happens to these projects? So these projects, you have 1 year period that you can continue the validation process using 1.0 guidelines. There's no requirement to change immediately. But as we discussed, as Amit and Shwandar explained, that somebody wants to go to ICVCM, someone wants to export 6.2 label, someone want to get Kosher phase 1, then these all provisions are there only in 2.0. Okay, so if someone's project is under verification and he wants to take these benefits, then it is prudent that they change to 2.0 then and there. However, it's left to the project owner to take the decision. So if the project is under validation stage or under RFR stage, there is no compulsion to change to 2.0 during the transition phase. It's entirely left to the project owner to decide. But what happens after 2.0 transition phase is over? If the project is yet under validation stage or yet under RFR stage, obviously this project will move to 2.0 after 1st February 2026. Okay, so this is very clear. Then what happens to the project which is already registered under issuance stage? So these projects, if it's already registered under 1.0 or under issuance stage at 1.0, these projects who don't want to transit to 2.0, they can continue in 1.0, getting issuance or everything under 1.0, but they will follow the program process of 2.0, where we have the 3 rounds of means the detailed assessment and so on and so forth. And also the document process, whatever is there, the templates, they will follow the 2.0. But they'll be, if they don't want to go to 2.0, there's no issue if the project is already registered or issuance stage. I hope this is very clear. And if anyone after registered project, they want to take ICVCM benefit or anything, they can go and transit to 2.0, for which they need to do post-registration changes. I hope this clarifies everything. If you want any questions, feel free, we can answer.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. So I see, I think we have tried to clarify a lot of things. I think many of the questions that are in the chat box would have already been clarified. However, we'll publish a document on this definitely, and also maybe we can use a couple of slides we can add to my presentation, and we can also publish it so that you can have a look later point in time. Okay, so thank you for feedback. I think people are clear about it, so good. Okay, so now let me switch to some of the other questions that were asked. We can spend another 5-10 minutes perhaps, on those questions. There was one question I think perhaps linked to I would say CCS. So the question, I don't remember, the question was something with the backs and what do you call it? The point source, can be combined together, something like this. Shubhendu, I had tagged it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
No, I'm trying to figure out this one. CCS projects are now allowed. Yeah, question. CCS projects are now allowed. Do the projects have to be combined with DAX or BEX to be eligible for credit? See, DAX and BEX are also a category of CCS projects. Under CCS projects, the methodology that we have can be point source CCS, can be a DAX, can be a BEX. So it depends upon what technology you're using for the CCS. So we allow for all, but then as we said, these projects can only start coming in post 1st of February, when the 2.0 gets functional and all the forms and templates are available for you to apply. And methodology is already there, guidance is already there.
Okay, so good, thanks. There's also, is there a hand from someone? No. So let me try. I'm trying to filter questions, and I can see many of the questions are answered. I'm trying to see if some of them are not answered, so that I can try to pull that up.
So we have one hand from Sudhindra.
There was one question.
Legacy hand?
That is a legacy hand.
That's the legacy hand. Yeah.
So there was one question about costs. So whether if you move from 1.0 to 2.0, whether there are any costs. I think we explained, how can you move from 1.0 to 2.0? There's a process called post-registering change. What it will involve is that you have to look at your registered PDD, and if you include new changes like, for example, labels, you have to add those information with regard to labels, and you have to demonstrate certain requirements that are, for example, if you have to introduce Article 6.2 label called as CA plus label, there are requirements in the standard for Article 6.2 eligibility for projects and issuances. So you will have to refer to it. So your PSF will change accordingly. So registered PSF is changing, and it's not registered, it's not looked upon by third-party verifier. So therefore, it will definitely need to be vetted by a third-party verifier, because we cannot accept that information without it's looked upon by a third-party verifier. So it will undergo that process. So somebody is spending time in reviewing this, somebody is doing validation, there will be costs, right? There will be costs. So this is just to answer that if you migrate from 1.0 to 2.0, there will be some costs, right? How much those costs will be, we are yet to figure out. We're still discussing it. Those fee schedule will be published, I think soon, maybe around middle of January or so, and then you will come to know about it. Article 6.2 has also costs on post-registration changes, but also other programs have also come up with changes. So it's expected there will be some costs. Okay, but the thing is this, I explained if you move to GCC from 1.0 to 2.0, in case you have more than one focal point 2 for sharing the credits, you save about 67% of the transfer fee. So if you have 100,000 credits, so 100,000 credits will will have transfer charge of 4 cents. So it will be about $40,000. So 67% of $67% of $40,000. Obviously, you can understand how much it will be, more than $25,000. So it is something like, there is an advantage in we have carefully crafted 2.0, and we have carefully crafted, the difference, so that there is a motivation for you to go in that. And plus, on the top of this, you can get access to new markets, to new labels, and so on and so forth. So there is possibly an advantage. Okay. So
There were a couple of questions. Like I think there was one question from Yuvraj Dinesh Babu. Chandra, I had put on your chat. If you can just look into that.
Can you read it out because I'm not being able
Yeah,
to see.
how many SC members have to provide comments for approval? Is it the majority or the timeline that decides the outcome of registration? I think he's talking with respect to 2.0, I believe.
Right. So when the moment the project goes to a steering committee, it might happen that we have 10 members of the steering committee. It might happen that none of them respond within the timeline. That means none of them have got any observations. We take it that if they don't raise an observation, there's no observations for the project activity. It's a positive outcome. It goes forward. If more than 2 members have similar observations with respect to similar requirements, then it moves to the next stage. That is it from DA1, it goes to DA2. These observations becomes a clarification request for the next stage, and then it has to be complied with. If the project comes to the end phase, that is, it has gone through DA1, DA2, DA3, RFR, and now it's an yes and no situation, there it's the majority decision which decides whether it's a registration or it's a not to register decision.
And the second question is, does GCC have a digital dashboard to show the status of the project and timeline for completing the milestones? Again, I think he's talking about the new portal, whether it's provisions.
Yeah. So maybe see that because of lack of time, what I couldn't show, there's a lot of things that's there in. So obviously one of the thing will obviously be in the login of the entity who's therein, you'll have a dashboard. And just for example, if I look into the project owners login and you go to the dashboard, which is therein, it will obviously give you an overview of which project is where, by what country, how much is it. So that is something. It's also a WIP, just to know, let you know. It will tell you how many under initial, how many under GSC, how many under assessment, how many approved, how many not to register, which is where, what are the claims on SDGs, what are the forecasted label, which geography is it coming from. There's subsequently many more which are going to come, just getting added to the dashboard. Obviously, each entity will have their own dashboard, which will give them all the overview of all the projects that's there.
The last question he has is
also,
like, sorry,
just 1 minute. I think, see, I have worked with UNFC for more than 8 years. I know their internal portal and internal dashboards, I have seen also other, programs. I can say with confidence that this portal and this dashboard will give you one of the best experiences, because it integrates a lot of processes into a single I would say portal. So it has many advantages. It will give you seamless experience. That's what I can understand. So it integrates payments together. It integrates everything. So I think settlement process is also integrated. It will also integrate, is currently connected with S&P Global Registry, but S&P Meta Registry, which will have also information with regard to countries, inventories. It will have so information with regard to application of corresponding adjustment, tracking, double counting, double registration, or which will also have access to countries risk, country risk profiles, because S&P is one of the leading in providing ratings. So you will have access to information in a single dashboard that will provide you a lot of information, and it will be one of the best experience in my understanding. But I think it's for you to judge that.
Okay,
there
the
was
last
there
question
was one
from
more question.
his side was like, can financing institutions seek focal point rights similar to what is being discussed in Article 6.4 for escrow or security of carbon assets?
Okay, so I don't know, Shubhendra, do you want to touch? Let me try to.
We have not, no, at this point in time, we have only allowed project supporter role, or early on, traders who enter into an early ERPA with the project owners wanting to know the status of the project, of how it is moving and all. That is there configured at this point in time in the portal.
Yeah, I would suggest, Dinesh, that once you decide to finance a particular project, you will have some kind of arrangements with the project owner. So ask them to include you as one of the focal points too, because there is a possibility for having 3 focal points, for the focal point 2. So ask them to include in the letter of authorization. So once you are listed there, and also state the share of the credits that you want to have control over. That's an internal arrangement that you have. Once you have that, your name will be displayed in the registry. You will also have to open account. So your share of credits will get into your account. So you can secure whatever financing you are contributing to the project. Because I think that was the purpose of why we allowed
split.
3 focal points here to actually reduce the barrier, to bring the trust in the current markets and to scale up current markets, because the financer will have surety or confidence that he has control over the credits over which he wants to have the control. So that was one of the reasons. Okay. Does
And there was
GCC
some question on the timeline of the new portal. When the projects need to be submitted to the new portal, maybe means like he wants to ask that whether the GCC 2.0 uses the new portal and 1.0 uses the old portal. Maybe he wants that clarity. If you can
Yeah,
share that
whether
I mean,
clarity.
GCC 1.0 will be continuing or discontinued?
No, that is his question, but there is another question which talks on the portal
Okay,
timeline.
okay.
So so maybe you can just throw some light on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that, as already stated, under 2.0, each player, whether it's GCC, whether it's the verifier, whether it's the expert, everyone has defined timelines. So they have to respond within the timeline. If they don't respond, then that goes into their, not that it bars a project, not that it prevents a project from moving forward, but that becomes, so for example, what happens if the verifier doesn't come back within that period? That goes into their verifier management system, and that gets triggered in the next round when we do an appraisal of the verifier. That also pushes the project backward in the scheduling. It goes at the end and again comes for scheduling if that happens there. The second is with respect to the fact that 1.0 is a separate portal, 2.0 is a separate portal. Migration of entities who expressed their interest to move from 1.0 to 2.0, which are in the process of registering, will be taken care of by GCC. So you already have your login details on a 1.0. We are going to trigger a login on the 2.0. You will receive mail saying that your ID has been migrated to 2.0. You have to log in, change your password, and then you have an access to 2.0 portal. But then your project lands up on a Tier 1. You will have 3 more cycles at the most to complete the validation process, because under 2.0 you have a maximum of 3 iterations. So the movement of projects between 1.0 to 2.0 is taken care of by GCC. Automatically, all project details are moved from GCC 1.0 to 2.0 by us.
And in case you find, there's a discrepancy between what your older information and newer, please write us an email. We'll respond quickly. We have activated customer care service for this particular GCC 2.0 support, and it will be resolved. Okay. There are also a few questions from Bharat. If there's an internal technical review process and QC process followed before the project submission, should we download a copy of the report, get it reviewed, and this is between you and the project owner and the verifier, or between the project owner themselves? But if you're talking about, after you have submitted a request for registration, what happens? Okay, so we have a 7-step process, 7-step quality assurance process, in which what happens is that first of all the project comes and we look at for the completeness check, or for also for the documentation check based on the checklist. And then if it is okay, it gets through. If it doesn't, there's a process. There will be 3 chances for project owners to respond to the clarifications. And once they respond to clarification, they can get it through the verifier. Verifier also has a limited time to respond to it. Once everything is settled, the verifier submits a verification report to us, in the request for registration is submitted or issuance is submitted. We assign our independent members within our team, our registration issuance team, and they look at the project. They also assign it to experts. So once they look at it, the experts input, the officer that's assigned will look at it, bring it to its manager, and then it will be looked upon again. So again, checking process will be happen, and finally it will bring to the internal project assessment process. We call that PAC process, where all our team will be sitting and we will be looking at that project and trying to see if there are the assessment is done in the right way it should have been done, or if there are any inconsistencies, or if there is any a difference in approach. So this ensures calibration, this ensures certainty, and then once it's done, we submit it to steering committee for 10 days. 10 steering committee members look at it. So now 10 steering committee members, we're also more than 15 people, 25 members, and then it goes through the very experts. So each project, we have calculated each project at least goes through 25 pair of eyes. So there is no one single person that can actually impact the process. So this whole process actually this whole process was actually applied in the CDM under UNFCCC, and we replicated it and strengthened the same process and applied it within our system. Okay.
And I think additional thing what they wanted information, sir, apart from what you shared, is like maybe the new portal has with this facility that verification process of internal TR and things, but that also needs to be uploaded in the new portal. That also they want clarity.
No, I think you are more coming from a verifiers perspective. You are going to ultimately do a request for registration submission only when you have completed your TR process and you have the final outcome post TR. So when you have the final report and the decision, then only you are going to come to the portal to apply for the request for registration to GCC. You're not going to give the interim report in between, because it's only the final submission when you have already cleared TR and you are going to submit to GCC your final approval or opinion on positivity or negative on the project activities. TR is internal to you.
So basically, like the internal system of verifier, which already they have, that remains. It's not, it's not in our portal. They need to share all the details with the project owner. That's not only during the verification process. Whatever happens between the verifier and the project owner, it's in their own system, not in our system.
Yeah. Yes. But we are also tying up with certain organizations, and in future, I think we are talking to them. So there is also a software version that will be really useful for the verifiers to manage their processes right from contract review stage or from onboarding process to the complete technical review process and the whole process in between. That would also be digitized. So I think I cannot see at this point in time, but I think we are doing the work, and there are few verifiers who have already actually established that processes within their organization. But that is the work to be done. So we will keep you updated on this whenever it happens.
I think one question was there from Rajiv Pramanik on timelines. Rajiv, you can go to a program process document. There you will find each of the timelines given therein. So you will know who's allowed how much of a maximum time to complete each of the jobs. It's already there in the program process. Just one thing, all the participants, we will be sending you a separate form. Please let us know what all you did not like and what all improvement you'd like to see in this portal. Don't write us what you liked, because we are more interested in knowing what can be improved in this portal. So it will come to you subsequently. Please fill in and send it to us. It will be very important for us to know the stakeholders' input on improving on the portal that we have.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's very important. It will help us to improve, and then it will also give you a better experience. So there was one question from Eva. So she's asking for a project that is already registered and has letter of authorization. Would it be required to transition to GCC 2.0 to get Article 6 label? Yes, because the process of Article 6 or ICVCM or COSIA first phase is not there in GCC 1.0, and we are not also authorized. So therefore, those requirements do not exist. So 1.0 cannot cater to this. So you will have to then move to 2.0. Okay, let me quickly look at for another 2 minutes if there are a few other questions. I might have definitely missed some of the questions, but
yeah, but then we are running out of time. Maybe
we're running out of time. Yeah. So
maybe concluding remarks we can have, and then so that
yeah, please.
Okay, so thank you everyone. I think we have tried our best to answer as many questions as possible. I hope you can appreciate our efforts. So with this, I would like to thank all of you. I think it's been really very great to see all of you to participate in the best way you could, and I hope we try to come up to your expectations in terms of the quality of the presentation, in terms of the quality of the content, and in terms of providing you clarity, more clarity on our requirements. At this point in time, I would then like to, I don't know if Kishore is available, but I could request him if he has any concluding remarks. So I think he's in another call. So then I would take this opportunity to thank all of you and wish you a great evening today. And thank you very much. The recordings and presentations would be available, will be sent to you. We'll provide you the links, and we'll also provide them on our website like before, so that if anyone is missed out, so you can refer to them and they can also look at those. But if there are any questions at any point in time, please write to us at communications@globalcarboncouncil.com or on operations@globalcarboncouncil.com. We can come back to you quite quickly. If there are new queries that can come to operations, that will come to communication@globalcarboncouncil.com. Clarification on new requirements. But if there is already a project owner that's already submitted already submitted projects, they can write to operations@globalcarboncouncil.com. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.